Arrived and includes Apple's most advanced flagship phone yet, the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But how does this phone compare to another top-of-the-line device unveiled earlier this year, the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra? Let's unpack the specs of each to see how they stack up. And remember that the specs don't tell the whole story, so be sure to subscribe to CNET to see how these phones actually perform side by side once we have them in hand. Earlier this year, I criticized Apple for charging a premium price for its iPhone 14 Pro Max while giving it a base storage of 128 gigabytes rather than 256 gigabytes. Now, I think that any phone that costs $1,000 or more in 2023 should start at 256 gigabytes of storage, so I really don't feel like that 128 gigabyte option is necessary from Apple. Perhaps they heard me because they've eliminated the 128 gigabyte storage option for the 15 Pro Max and have given the phone a base storage of, you guessed it, 256 gigabytes. That change has brought the 15 Pro Max and S23 Ultra pricing and storage options into near perfect alignment. Let's review them. Both the 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra start at $1,200 for 256 gigabytes of storage. After that, you can pay around $1,400 for 512 gigabytes or around $1,600 for 1 terabyte. I have the exact numbers on screen because Samsung and Apple do charge slightly different prices for the 512 gigabyte and 1 terabyte models, but they are pretty dang close. Another similarity I want to point out early on is USB-C. Both the 15 Pro Max and the S23 Ultra have a USB-C port, which is a huge deal because the iPhone 15's predecessors used a Lightning port. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is powered by Apple's brand new A17 Pro processor, which it claims is the, quote, fastest chip ever on any smartphone. The Galaxy S23 Ultra features the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip. That A17 Pro claim from Apple makes me really interested to see how these two flagship phones perform side by side. When it comes to operating systems, the 15 Pro Max runs on Apple's new iOS 17, while the S23 Ultra runs on Android 13. The 15 Pro Max has a 6.7-inch OLED display with a 2796 by 1290 pixel resolution at 460 ppi. It also has a 120 Hz refresh rate that adjusts based on what you're doing. So if you're using your phone for something that doesn't require much screen movement, like reading an article, the refresh rate will stay low. But if you're using it for something with more movement, like a video game, the refresh rate will go up. The S23 Ultra has a 6.8-inch AMOLED display with a 3088 by 1440 pixel resolution at 500 ppi. It also has a refresh rate of up to 120 Hz that adjusts based on what you're doing, like the 15 Pro Max. The 15 Pro Max keeps the notch, which comes in the form of the dynamic island that was introduced with the 14 Pro models last year. It's a shape-shifting cutout at the top of the screen that gives you updates from apps like Maps and Clock without needing to have them open. The S23 Ultra doesn't have a notch, just a hole-punch camera at the top of the screen. Like the 14 Pro Max, the 15 Pro Max unlocks with Face ID, while the S23 Ultra unlocks with an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor under the screen. One of the S23 Ultra's most distinctive features is its integrated S Pen. It's a stylus that you can store inside the phone. The 15 Pro Max doesn't have anything like this. I say this every time I compare these phones and will keep saying it until there's a change. How cool would a mini iPhone-specific Apple Pencil be? Or at the very least, can Apple make their pre-existing pencils compatible with the iPhone? Please. The 15 Pro Max has slightly rounded edges, while the S23 Ultra has squared-off edges. As for width and weight, the 15 Pro Max is 8.25 millimeters thick, while the S23 Ultra is slightly thicker at 8.9 millimeters. And the 15 Pro Max weighs 7.81 ounces, while the S23 Ultra is a little heavier at 8.25 ounces. Both the 15 Pro Max and S23 Ultra are rated IP68, so they're water resistant. Next, let's talk cameras. The 15 Pro Max has a 3-camera system. There's a 48 megapixel main camera with an f1.78 lens, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera with an f2.2 lens, and a 12 megapixel telephoto camera with an f2.8 lens. The 15 Pro Max also has a 12 megapixel front camera with an f1.9 lens. The S23 Ultra features a 4-camera system. There's a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera with an f2.2 lens, a 200 megapixel wide-angle camera with an f1.7 lens, a 10-megapixel telephoto camera with an f4.9 lens, and another 10-megapixel telephoto camera with an f2.4 lens. The S23 Ultra also has a 12-megapixel front camera with an f2.2 lens. Additionally, the 15 Pro Max offers a 5 times optical zoom, which is unprecedented for the iPhone, while the S23 Ultra offers a 10 times optical zoom. So despite the 15 Pro Max camera upgrade, the iPhone still has some catching up to do when it comes to optical zoom. The 15 Pro Max can record up to 4K video at 24, 25, 30, or 60 frames per second on the front and back cameras. The S23 Ultra can record up to 4K 60 on the front and back cameras and supports 8K recording at 30 frames per second. The 15 Pro Max also has a new spatial video capture feature. It uses multiple phone lenses to take videos with depth that can be seen on the Apple Vision Pro AR/VR headset. Now on to battery life. Apple doesn't disclose battery capacity, but claims the 15 Pro Max has an all-day battery life with up to 29 hours of video playback. You know our experts will test that claim. The S23 Ultra, on the other hand, has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. In her S23 Ultra review, CNET's Lisa Edechico found that after 12 hours of use, there was still 66% battery left. Both the 15 Pro Max and the S23 Ultra support wireless charging, but the S23 Ultra also supports reverse wireless charging to juice up other devices from the back of the phone. Finally, let's go over color options. The 15 Pro Max comes in natural titanium, blue titanium, white titanium, and black titanium. The S23 Ultra comes in cream, lavender, phantom, black, and green. You can also get exclusive Samsung.com colorways: red, sky blue, graphite, and lime. That's all the specs of the brand new